This is going to be an interesting review after Ghostbusters and Star Trek. Somebody once challenged one of my favorite writers, Roger Ebert, to name a movie that completely eschewed all cliché, that had no recognizable filmic tropes in it. He could have said Koyaanisqatsi, but the dude was a writer, so he said My Dinner with Andre. This is a famous movie. It deserves to be famous because it's remarkable, but it's famous for two reasons. First, for a certain kind of young writer or actor, or just person, it is an eye-opening experience. A movie can be like this, a conversation can be like this. There are real people in the real world who talk about things like this. Yes, there are. This is a filmed version of a real event. The two actors are playing themselves. Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory are playing Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory, two writers and actors and directors, so the Venn diagram of their lives already overlaps quite a lot. Both theater actors and writers and directors, so the Venn diagram overlaps even more. And they spend 90 minutes sitting around talking about art and writing and acting. Really, it's a conversation about living a creative life. In spite of how similar these two characters are, the whole point of the film is about how different they are. Shawn is playing a version of himself who's a jobbing actor, not really obsessed with acting theory, just trying to find his way, while Gregory is like a mystic who dropped in from another planet. My Dinner with Andre is one of those movies I stumbled across when I was a teenager. I'd come home from a night of playing D&D or being at the arcade with my friends, and I'd stay up until 3 a.m. sitting on the floor of my air-conditioned apartment about 3 feet away from a big TV, just absorbing whatever weird stuff was on that late at night. You'd come into a movie, no idea what it was, no idea how far you were into it, and the movie had to hook you fast in just a few frames sometimes to get you to stop flipping channels and watch it. Only an unusual movie can do that. You have no idea when you're that age, going through that experience, that these movies are weird. I mean, obviously they're weird films, but you don't really know that being weird is unusual for a movie. I was young enough, I just accepted, okay, these are some of the things movies can be, and that was it. If I had only watched mainstream movies, if I'd only ever seen the same movies all my friends saw, I would have had a very different idea about what movies could be. And if I'd come across these weird movies later in life, I would have found them too challenging. I'd have written them off as pretentious nonsense, which is the second reason My Dinner with Andre is famous. Because it's literally just two dudes talking about acting theory, it is famous for being incredibly pretentious. But that's not how I saw it as a kid. I didn't know what pretentiousness was. To me, these films were just at the interesting edge of what movies could be. That experience, and the movies I discovered then, stuff like Fantastic Planet, Equus, Picnic at Hanging Rock, was the subject of a conversation I was having with my coworker Justin Sherry. Justin had a very similar experience growing up. He had his own slate of films he had discovered through that same process, and chief among them was the English language movie from Poland I had never heard of called Possession from 1981. It's got Sam Neill in it, who I think is brilliant, so I was interested. Justin lent me the Blu-ray and I watched it, and we're going to talk about it right now. And if it seems like there's only a tangential, circumstantial connection with My Dinner with Andre, it's because I haven't explained either movie very deeply. A whole big chunk of My Dinner with Andre is about Andre Gregory going off to Poland to work with a dude named Jerzy Grotowski in the middle of a forest where a bunch of actors, none of whom speak the same language as their director, all do crazy stuff related to identity and motion and incredibly weird actor nonsense. That's me describing it now, but when I saw it as a kid, I was mesmerized by him talking about this. Steven Soderbergh said he thought the close-up was one of the great inventions of the 20th century because it allows you, in the dark theater, to stare at another human's face for as long as you want. The face is projected on a screen 30 feet high so you notice every detail. The actor's on film so they can't react to you staring at them, which frees you to really absorb their performance and emotions. You start feeling what they're feeling, and you're in a dark theater, and the other people sitting around you can't see you, which frees you to have whatever reaction you're inspired to have in that moment. That's what watching Andre Gregory talk about his time in Poland was like for me. It was a kind of mind-altering experience. I felt like I sort of understood what he was talking about, and it was fascinating and confusing and inspiring, and that whole thing just leaves you spent. Well, that's what Possession is. You're going to spend 2 hours watching this incredibly weird movie done by a director named Andrzej Żuławski, who studied and was inspired by Jerzy Grotowski, that same Polish dude Andre Gregory studied with. This movie is super weird, and weird in weird ways. Like the first 45 minutes is just a married couple breaking up. And the interesting thing about that is at first, you don't know why they're breaking up. And then you realize they don't know why they're breaking up, and that is something that happens to people. The film is inspired by the director's real breakup. Discovering that they don't even know why they're breaking up is interesting. It's a mundane set of circumstances, but the whole thing is directed and acted like a Greek tragedy. I mean, literally a play from like 2,000 years ago, before anyone had really figured out how to be an actor in front of an audience. The actors look like they're performing in a ballet when they're just delivering dialogue. They pose and spin and hurl themselves around the room, just talking about getting groceries. Oh, and it's set in West Germany at the height of the Cold War, and it looks like West Germany at the height of the Cold War, so the whole film looks like the dancers from a Kate Bush video inside an Ultravox video. Also, the dialogue is insane. No one talks like this. Anna says things like, "I can't exist by myself, because I'm afraid of myself, because I am the maker of my own evil." What? At one point, Sam Neill confronts his wife's lover, and in an already weird movie, this dude seems like a guy beamed in from a much stranger movie. The director's not very subtle way of taking the piss out of his real-life wife's real-life lover. This is an actual conversation the two men have in the film, and I want to emphasize I am not making this up. There is nothing to fear except God, whatever that means to you. For me, God is a disease. That's why through a disease, we can reach God. What? I could have played the clip, but I had more fun acting it out. The whole movie is like this, and maybe it's unsporting of me to criticize the dialogue, if indeed that is what I have been doing, because the dude who wrote it was Polish, and English is like his second or third language, so I'm inclined to give the guy a break. But the unnaturalness of it is part of the point. It's clear watching this that while people move and pose and speak in unnatural ways, they aren't random or haphazard. They're done artfully to achieve an effect, and that is to elevate this otherwise mundane breakup into the realm of a Jungian, archetypal mythic world. When accused of making an autobiographical film about his own breakup, the director said, "But that wouldn't have been a very interesting movie. I had to insert all this crazy stuff and make it not about me to make it interesting." And whatever else you might say about this movie, it is interesting. If you want the down-to-earth, mundane version of this same thing, just go watch Bergman's Scenes from a Marriage, which this movie does seem sort of inspired by. There were definitely moments early in the film, when things were merely very strange, when I was reminded of being young and in love the way these characters are, or once were, and how insane our behavior then seems to me now. Insane, but also vital and necessary. It was an interesting way to be reminded of that state of being, so good job, weird Polish movie. At the center of this film, and I haven't even touched on the weirdest, most mind-bending thing that happens, is a titanic, fearless performance by Isabelle Adjani. You're going to watch a woman go through the ringer in this film, and if I have a criticism, it's that since the film's writing and performances aren't meant to be naturalistic, Adjani's manic raving feels a lot like a child throwing a tantrum to get attention. And wow, as I think about what I just said, I wonder if that's not the director's criticism of all the women he's known. Man, I think it has to be. I think he got Adjani to act this way and make the audience go, "Come on, dial down the theatrics," because that's his impression of the women he's known. If so, I can also see how he's undermined his own point. Like Tolstoy, who set out to write a short story skewering the girl who done him wrong, but wrote it from her point of view, and so ended up writing a novel sympathizing with the woman, because that's what happens when you get inside someone else's head. Zulawski ends up making a movie about what society expects of women, and how that can reasonably drive them mad. Remember, the movie is called Possession, and while it's clear that there is a kind of spiritual possession happening, it's also about Sam Neill's character wanting to literally own his wife, and doing it in a way that makes those Calvin Klein perfume ads we all made fun of in the 80s look like a Robert Altman movie. Oh my God. This movie is called Possession, and that perfume was called Obsession. Is that a coincidence? This commercial came out 3 years after this movie. They directed these commercials the way they did because of this stupid movie. Wow, suddenly a lot of stuff we made fun of in the 80s and wondered where the hell did this come from makes sense. There's a moment in the film, it's basically the climax of the film's dramatic arc, where Adjani is alone in a Berlin subway and is suddenly gripped by, we don't know what, whatever's possessing her. God, probably, if I understand this movie, and I'm not going to tell you what happens, because like God, this movie, that scene, can't really be understood. It can only be experienced. But without giving anything away, Adjani is hysterical. I mean, like going mad, not being funny. Although, as I say that, I am reminded that the root of hysterical is the same as hysterectomy. It originally meant the kind of madness only women can suffer from. There isn't such a thing, but people once thought there was. She spends a long time in this subway, alone, having some kind of shamanistic, convulsive experience, and at first you think, holy crap, because it's violent and dramatic, and then because the scene just continues and Adjani gets progressively more theatrically violent, I started to sort of check out and wonder how long this is going to last. But it continues and goes all the way through and out the other side until I had that experience as an adult, just like I did as a kid watching movies, where I was no longer even aware of myself as a conscious person having a reaction. I was just there in the subway station with that woman experiencing, I don't know what. But knowing is not the point. Ajani won the Best Actress award at Cannes for her performance, and if you watch it and think it's over the top, you're not wrong, I just feel like you've missed the point. Someone once said all gender is performance. I think that's overstating it, but there is certainly some truth there, and you're watching a lot of that in this titanic performance from a fearless actor. To give performances like Ajani and Neil do, you can't really be too worried about your career or what your agent's gonna say. You just have to believe in the power of acting and art and go for it. Sam Neill's performance is just as bizarre and theatrical as Ajani's. There's a point right after she first leaves him where he goes through what is clearly meant to be a direct analogy for heroin withdrawal. Later, like everyone else in the movie, he mugs and leers for the camera in close-up like a mime. If I had seen this as an adult in 1981, I'd have guessed neither of these actors would get a lot of work after this. So bizarre are their performances. But I'm glad they did because they're both amazing. Lots of fun seeing Sam Neill looking ridiculously young and thin and like he's in a European perfume ad. I deliberately left out the weirdest things that happen in this movie. I do not recommend you YouTube this stuff because that is not how any of this was intended to be experienced. But at the same time, I can't rightly criticize people who insist that adaptations worship their source material and tell you how to watch your movies, so knock yourself out. But if you do check it out, I have one question. Are we meant to understand that the girl with green eyes at the end of the movie is the same thing as the guy with green eyes at the end of the movie? That she always has been the same thing? Unless you're in a very specific mood, I don't think you'd find this movie very watchable, but if you're in that mood, I think it would be mind-altering. Me, now, I spent a lot of time thinking, what is going on? Which was not an unpleasant experience, but if I were younger and it were easier for me to just relax and go with it, I would have just sat there thinking. So, thanks, Justin. It was a bizarre and entertaining way to spend an evening, especially after seeing Ghostbusters and Star Trek. I didn't intend my next review to be of an old film, but this movie met my #1 criteria for reviewing, and that is, it inspired a lot of thought. Really, I don't do this because I expect anyone to agree or disagree with me. Neither agreeing or disagreeing is the point. I just hope you find my thinking interesting, and I hope it inspires you to think interesting things, because that is one of the reasons we go to the movies. I don't know what the next review will be. It may be of a new movie that's coming out soon. It may be of an old movie I've already seen. I hadn't really intended to review Possession when I watched it, so probably the next movie review will be of whatever movie makes me think, huh, that's interesting. Until then, peace out.